Hello, beautiful friend. My name is Stefán Elí, and welcome to the first official episode of my podcast. Wow, I am super grateful for you tuning in, and it means the world to me that you're listening. On this episode, I got the chance to speak with my soul brother and dear friend, Ivan Mendez. We got deep into his journey of growth and creativity. We spoke about the dance of life and the difference between choosing to act out of love or fear. This was a truly inspiring conversation for me, and I believe it can be for you too. So without further ado, I bring to you the beautiful human, Ivan Mendez. Enjoy. Brother Ivan, what a blessing to see you here. What a blessing that we have the opportunity to speak, even though we're not in the same place, living in these times.
Yeah, it's quite the privilege to be born in this era of technology, let's say.
Exactly. And right now we're speaking English, even though we're both Icelandic native speakers. But
Yes.
this is to share it with the people.
Indeed, we we could have the opportunity to speak in Icelandic, but we would be cursed with only being able to reach 300,000 people as opposed to few million. So this is the price we pay.
Exactly. So I want to dive today into whatever wants to come up, but I want to shine the light on bringing your being and sharing it with the world and whoever is listening. So I would love for you to maybe start with a little introduction behind who is Ivan Mendez, what does he do, and what brought him to where he is.
That's a tall order. So, Ivan Mendez, I'll be speaking on behalf of Ivan Mendez today. And Ivan Mendez is currently a student of music production living in Berlin, a native of the small town of Akureyri in the north of Iceland. Half Colombian, half Icelandic. I'm a musician. I'm a great enthusiast of plant medicine, philosophy, science, physical movement, poetry, songwriting, nature, creating, and a lover of life in general.
Wonderful. That's a beautiful encapsulation, brother.
Yeah, I think so.
Lover of music, plant medicine, and life itself.
Yeah, I guess like with any other person, the concept of Ivan Mendez is ever changing, and it has been changing ever since I entered this universe, and I assume it will continue to change. So there are probably many things to be said, but I hope they will unravel naturally in this conversation right now. But I think that's good for introduction, at least.
Yeah, it sounds like a great. We could put this as some sort of bio or something. Just boom, exactly how you said it right there.
And it's the short bio.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to get into with you a little bit because I have, of course, heard so much about this, us being great friends, and we've talked extensively about just all the things that we have been doing and our thoughts and ideas and all this. And I want to go a little bit into the origins story for, if we look at the past few years, there's been such a tremendous shift in your way of being, your way of existing. And I kind of want to dive into what are the different elements that inspire this change and take you from the place where you were at to the place where you are now. Could you expand on this for us?
Yes, I will try to do my best.
Maybe it's best to start with, giving a picture of where we were a few years back, or wherever you want to start with it?
Yeah, it's I guess it's I wonder where the starting point is, because you know,
Yeah.
in one way I feel like I've always been here and I've always been changing. But if I start with you know, let's start with when I was young, and we'll fast forward through some of these phases, of course. But I've always been very curious, and always been very interested in picking apart the workings of reality. And as a kid, I remember myself being very I like to take things apart, and I like to wonder about stuff, and I like to ask questions. And that has brought me into many interesting different situations in my life. To connect this with what I think you're asking right now, is that I of course a few years ago was living life quite differently than how I am living life right now. I was working as a hairdresser, and my passion was competitive bodybuilding and powerlifting.
Yes.
And that was my passion to the same extent as music is right now. I think reflecting on this back right now to what my life was, is that I was trying to prove myself a lot to other people in a way that I as I said, from when I was a little kid, I was feeling very curious and passionate about understanding life, but I was also feeling very, very, let's say, insecure about myself and who I was. And
Yes.
I grew up with this feeling in my heart that I was somehow less than everybody else. And I had this predominant need to find my own thing and to prove that I was worthy of simply being a human being and existing. And I think the bodybuilding lifestyle was somewhat of a super inflated ego version of myself, trying to prove myself in the most primitive way that I can
Yes.
think of being exactly being stronger than everybody else, being bigger than everybody else in the physical realm.
Yes.
Well, to fast forward a little bit through that, I learned a lot just about the human body, how the body works, how it responds to different nutrition, how it responds to different exercise stimulus, and I learned a lot about willpower, and that I saw that if I focused my mind and my being on something, a goal in the future, or not such a distant future, even just a few months, I could transform myself completely and look differently and feel differently and perform differently.
Yeah.
And that was a really liberating thing for me. It was a very empowering experience. But I also realized, after having competed both in powerlifting and in bodybuilding, I guess there was a certain moment when there was a switch in my head that just went like this, and I had this thought like, am I doing this because I enjoy it, or am I doing this because I'm trying to prove something?
Yes.
And this thought set into motion something inside of me that started to doubt who I was. And so I kind of made a decision one night. I remember after my last powerlifting competition, I said to my friends who were with me, I mean, I had just, done great. I felt like, I was putting up new records and all that. I wasn't competing at any world-class standard or anything like that, but I just said, like, I think this was the last time I will ever compete. And they were very curious about, like, why that was, but I just felt it in my heart that it was something that I didn't need to do anymore. And I guess the same goes for the hairdressing lifestyle. It was something that I went into because I wanted to feel safe, and I wanted to feel like I was doing something that was accepted by society. It was something like a safe choice as a career, and I wanted to do something creative as well. But it wasn't the first thing that came to mind. I mean, if I read my yearbook from when I graduated from 10th grade, when I was 15 years old, it says, "What do you want to do?" And it says, "I want to be a musician." And somewhere along the way, from being 15 to being 18 years old, this thought started to kind of infest in my mind that being a musician was not something that one could do. It was something very unsafe, and it was something that was very risky, kind of like, saying I want to become an astronaut or something like a lofty goal. But I think I went through a process that any person that is living a life that is not according to their highest image of who they can be, you start to feel like you're living a lie. You start to feel like you're not living up to your highest potential. And I started to feel like I was an animal in a cage. And there was this burning need inside of me to do something, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't really figure out inside of myself what it was that was burning me up inside. I felt I was giving all my passion to bodybuilding and hairdressing and the things that I was doing in life, but somehow it wasn't fulfilling me, and this passion inside started to burn me up. And I remember just twisting and turning in my bed and talking to my girlfriend at the time and saying to her, like, I need to do something. I need to go somewhere and to find something. And she asked me, like, what do you need to find? What do you need to do? What is it that you want to achieve so badly? And the worst thing was that I said to her, I don't know. I don't know what it is. So that sets in motion a chain of events where I violently broke out of my life situation. And unfortunately, I quit my job. I stopped competing. It ended with me going to India for the first time with a group of friends. I took my telephone, I took the card out, threw away the phone, closed up all my social media, and was determined to find myself somewhere else. But long story short, I came home and realized that I had made a huge mistake in simply burning down everything that I had in life. But that led to me having a nervous breakdown and being led to the hospital, where I was hyperventilating and crying like a little kid. And I guess that was a result of me bottling down all of my emotions and my desires. But from there on, I started traveling the world. I went to South America. I traveled through the Amazon. I stayed with shamans in the Amazon. I did quite a lot of ayahuasca ceremonies there. I traveled through Bolivia. I traveled through Chile on my own, through Ecuador and Colombia. Came back home, shortly went back into the hairdressing for about a year, and quickly realized that I just couldn't go back to my normal life. There was something changing inside of me. So After that, I went with one of my really good friends, Hendrik, to India again. Spent there 1.5 months, traveling around, learning yoga, learning meditation, seeking divinity, seeking holy men, seeking people who could possibly help me along my journey. I went to Thailand. I lived in a monastery there for 5 weeks. Slept on the floor, did my meditations, walked in the forest. I went through Vietnam on a motorcycle with my guitar, writing songs. And eventually I came home from all these travels and searching, and I finally, after all these adventures, I felt like I had the courage to say, like, okay, the thing that I was looking for all this time was the thing that 15-year-old Ivan actually already knew. Like, I want to become a musician. That was the answer all along. And so a lot of things changed in my life in a short amount of time. Yeah, that's right. But it was a long journey that kind of spiraled down into itself and finally down into the core and into what I already knew, but was just afraid to admit.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What a great sharing, brother. Thank you for this.
Yeah, thanks, brother. I got on a train of thought right there, and I hope it got clearly to your ears.
Yes, it did. And I'm so grateful that this chain of events is shared now in such a clear timeline, both for me just to see, wow, because I only met you now 3 years ago or so.
Yes.
Right. So just, of course I've heard so much of this, but seeing it now in one kind of continuous frame,
yes,
is something super powerful. And there are so many points that came to mind when you were sharing this that that I felt I wanted to touch on. And like one of these points is maybe what you said that sparked this change is this question that you asked yourself: am I doing this, which was the powerlifting and the hairdressing, all this, am I doing this out of fear or am I doing this out of love? Am I doing it out of the love for actually the joy of doing what I'm doing, or is it out of the fear that I won't be enough if I am not doing this? That's how you...
Exactly.
That's truly the question. And I feel like this is such a powerful question to ask in whatever circumstance we find ourselves in. Am I truly doing what I'm doing because I choose to, out of my own joy and my own love to express myself in this way? Or is it out of the fear that I don't know how people are going to respond to this? People will probably think I am that or this if I don't do this.
Yes.
And yes, I felt this was a great sharing from you, brother. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And yeah, this is a very interesting thing to ask oneself in any situation that we encounter. Am I doing this out of fear or am I doing this out of love? And I mean, the most loving thing we think we could be doing could be out of fear as well. And it's a tricky thing. And even though I say all of these things like I'm looking back at my life like it's some past event and then I figured it all out and now I'm here. It's like surely not like that. And I mean, we've gone through this in so many conversations together that we are constantly double checking ourselves with this. And even though I had a moment in time where I had the courage to say, I want to become a musician, that then later turned into, oh, it's not that I want to become a musician, I am a musician. And that has also been a constant teacher in my life of asking myself, why am I a musician? And I have caught myself and the little Ivan many times on this journey of being a musician, of, you know, the little Ivan who just wants to get the love, he just wants to get the appreciation, he just wants to know that he is a person that's worthy of existing, and he is sometimes, you know, he comes for a visit, and he tries to write a song to impress all the people, to so people will say like, oh man, that's a great song, you're such a great musician, wow, you're so great. And you know, he sneaks in, and he tries to be a part of the party. And I have had so many moments where I tried to lock him out of the room. It's like, no, I'm doing this because my heart is so pure. But then you realize that, you know, he's a part of me as well. And these days, you know, when he comes for a visit, I take him under my arm and it's like, hey man, good to see you again. It's okay, you know, we're on this journey together, but it's important to remember that there is a higher purpose to these things that one wants to do. It's not, or in my opinion, it should not be driven by exactly the fear of not being appreciated, of not being enough, of not being worthy, because in the end of the day, that's going to severely limit the amount of creative power that you can convey and give.
Exactly. Yes, and I think it's beautiful just to be able to see it, you know, this little Ivan, the little Stefan, he comes in, and the fact that you can look at him, acknowledge that he is here, and say, okay, what's up, brother? Come in, I'll give you a hug. You know, you can stay if you want, but I won't let you do too much.
Yeah, you can pitch in on a few lines maybe.
Yeah. No, I've caught myself in this too many times when I'm asking myself, like, am I posting this video of me here working out because I am doing it out of this kind of trying to prove myself, like, see, I'm actually healthy, like this is what I'm actually doing. Just look, you know, I'm doing all right.
Exactly.
Or is it for the higher purpose of actually inspiring people to chase after this themselves? And the beauty in this is that even though when we have the moments of smallness, when we fall into the story of the smaller self, whatever that be, the fact that we can come on the other side, so to say, like right now when we're speaking of it and share it, you know, we actually have these moments as well, and the fact that we can see it and share it is so powerful when it comes to connecting, because everyone goes through this, you know.
Exactly. It's a very human thing, and it's something that you know, it's important with all of these little things that we have inside ourselves, whether we like to call them the shadow or the little self or whatever, just to shine light on these things. And when we do, we realize that they're not so scary, and they're not so shameful. They're kind of cute in a way sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, just before this interview right now, I went through this little train of thought. I mean, yesterday I had such a great day, and I was on my bicycle back home from my university, and I thought to myself, like, wow, I'm probably enlightened today. There's nothing in my head. I just feel so much love, and I feel so much flow. And then before I went to bed, just an hour later, I felt like, oh, suddenly I'm feeling so stressed. I'm like, where was this enlightened Ivan? And then, and then I woke up this morning, and I had this idea in my head that, like, okay, I'm doing a podcast with Stefan, and these thoughts started to come up. How will I come across? Should I? No, I probably have to meditate before I go on the podcast with him. So, and I have some cacao maybe. So I'll be the most loving, most peaceful version of myself, and people will see me in that way. And then other programs started to kick in. I was like, no, Ivan, don't think like this. You're always,
Yeah.
like, oh no, you shouldn't be thinking like this. And then another train of thought came in, like, it's totally okay that I'm having these thoughts. And if I want to meditate before the interview, that's great. If I want to have cacao, well, that's also great. I mean, I'm just simply making sure that that I optimize myself for having a great conversation. It's not something that should be shameful, and it's not something that should be so hidden or that I cast the thing that casts a shadow on these things is that we try to hide them from other people, and I think that is where they start to look really scary.
Wow. Yes. Great points. I connect so much with this, especially I've been just experiencing it right now these past months with such a unfamiliar situation of existing. It's always changing depending on these on all the fluctuations that we're seeing so fast in our state of being. We can't see people, we can't all this.
Yeah.
And just like you said, like this oscillation between enlightened states of being, or then you just dive into the stress.
Yeah.
It's almost that I feel like I am having two personalities at some point in time because they
More
go
than
so
two.
fast. Of course. But they boil down to two essential sponsoring entities, I feel like, which come back to the love and fear right here.
Exactly.
And they've been going so fast for me that I have the same experience. One moment I'm just in the bliss, like this is all the best thing I ever seen. Like we're here, this is life. And then just a second later, I find myself lying somewhere, just like, I can't do this. Why is this so hard?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. There is this balance, of course, inside of us, and we fluctuate and oscillate between these different characters and different states of being all the time, throughout the day, throughout every minute even. And I guess my practice during the last few days, during the last few weeks has been allowing all of these characters to just simply be and come up, and if they arise from the depths of my being, then so be it. It's okay. Like it's like with the little Ivan, I just welcome him with a sense of humor, like there's that thing, and then when I guess most of the psychological stress really comes from when we start to feel these feelings and we start to generate thoughts about having these feelings.
Yes.
And that creates this vicious circle of, like, let's say there is a certain emotion and the nature of emotions is that they don't really, they don't have a name. It's just a certain feeling that comes up. But let's say this one is kind of like blue, reddish, and it's kind of furry and it's kind of uncomfortable and it's like somewhere in your chest and like, and yeah, exactly. And your mind starts to generate like, I shouldn't be feeling like this. I'm kind of lonely. I'm kind of stressed about what's going to happen tomorrow. And like, I got this paper to hand in and like, I wonder if this is going to blah, blah, or and that, like I said, sets in motion this circle of thoughts manifesting, and these thoughts start to amplify the emotion. But when we can simply feel this emotion arise within us and not put a name on it and not try so hard to connect thoughts to it and simply, just give it space to let it be. The funny thing is that, they somehow become less powerful. They have less power upon us. Like, I think the one of the first times I really remember vividly feeling this emotion is when I was in this transformational part of my life, and many of my friends had moved away from Akureyri, from our hometown, into Reykjavik, and many people that I used to hang out with were, their life situation was changing, and I felt immensely lonely. And I thought to myself, I was walking with my dog, and I thought to myself, like, wow, I'm so lonely. Like, there's nobody around. All of my friends are gone, and I'm just alone, and it's so hard. And this feeling inside of me is so overwhelming and lonely.
It goes again and again.
Yeah,
and again.
exactly. Just like so lonely, and it just plays like a cassette in your head, like just keeps on going. And then I had this moment of clarity of like, okay, what if I stop being sad about being lonely? What if I just kind of decide here and now that that loneliness is necessarily not a bad thing. It's just an emotion I'm going through right now. And I felt like I had this ball of emotion that I was inside of, and suddenly I was, I guess, the space around the emotion, and I felt it as a thing that was in my field. I was not focused in on this particular emotion and letting it be all consuming. I zoomed out, and then for a moment, like, yeah, this emotion is interesting, and it's kind of bluish in color the way I'm feeling it right now, but it's when I detach the all these names from it and all my ideas of what it is to be lonely and how hard it is to be lonely, it's just a little blue ball that's floating inside of me. And the magical thing was that when I had been, just keeping that emotion within myself for a little bit, it just like melted like butter, like.
Yep.
And then I started to realize, like, oh, there's a lot of people in this world, and there's a lot of things that I can connect to, and I don't need to be lonely,
Yes. Well, yeah, it's with these thoughts, they attract thoughts that fit into a similar frequency that they are in. If you're having this lonely thought, because just like you said, the emotions, they will come and go, but the thoughts, they are really what sponsors this circle.
Exactly.
And when you start thinking I'm lonely, this thought will attract more thoughts of the same kind of that have the same message. I don't see any people, everyone has left me, and it goes again and again. We've all seen this.
It turns into a magnet.
Exactly. But the beautiful thing is that we can consciously flip the poles on this magnet and just decide to think a happy thought, and it will attract the same. Just like both of us have practiced the rampage of appreciation.
Exactly.
Where you will think a positive thought, and it will lead to another positive thought, and you will go on this train where you just find more and more and more to be positive about. But yeah, the truth is, of course, that these emotions, they come and go, and it's when we start resisting the feeling where the suffering starts to is born or birthed, whatever you say.
Yes.
In the resistance, because the fluctuation is necessary for any experience at all. Like if you were happy all the time and didn't know any sadness, it would lose all its power, the happiness. And I wrote about this yesterday. I wrote a little blog post, but I haven't posted it yet. Thinking about, we're always trying to find this balance in life where we have an image of a certain set point where we can just like sink in, I found the balance.
Yeah.
I have it. This is
I'm done.
I'm done. But the truth of the matter is, we're all seeking this, but none of us ever obtain it. Like there's never a point where you just sit at least not for too long, and you just think, I have it figured out. And I feel like the key distinction in where you place your way of thinking about this is not looking at it as a battle of always, going from one to the next. If you feel like you're doing too much, you want to relax, and if you feel like you're spending all your time doing nothing, you really feel like you gotta go an adventure. And we experience this often as some kind of battle within ourselves. But this got me thinking about this thing that Alan Watts said about the dance.
Yeah.
Like instead of looking at this as a battle, let's look at this as a dance between two partners. And the purpose of the dance is nothing other than the dance itself. It's not to get anywhere where you will find balance. Like you won't reach that point. When you're dancing on a dance floor, you're not trying to hit a certain spot on the floor and freeze there and you made it. The dance has served its purpose. The purpose is the dance itself.
Exactly.
And it's the same way in our life when we look at it from that perspective, that we're always going to be going through our ups and downs. And that is the essential lifeline that will go like this, because just like we both know, if we have the flat line, the balance
that's just static.
Exactly.
Exactly, yes. And I really love this analogy of the dance, because as you know, and you know, of course, because you are yourself a dancer like me, we both enjoy, the salsa dancing and the free flow dancing and the, tribal hey nay and all that, exactly, banging on the chest and screaming and moving the body. It's I connect so much with this idea of life being a dance and everything being a dance, between these two forces, between the yin and yang, between the Shiva and the Shakti, between the plus and the minus, the night and the day, the birth and the death, and the winter and the summer and everything. It's just a constant dance and movement. And I really like what they say in India, that God is just creation dancing. It's always going on. There's these two polar energies that keep on dancing with each other, and somewhere we find ourselves in the midst of all of this, and we can decide to look at it from the perspective of that we're caught in some turbulent vortex or in storm or something like that, or we can sit there peacefully and look at it like this. It's a dance of these energies, and I'm a part of that dance. I'm one of the many billions of dancers in all of this, and enjoy the ride.
Wow, that was beautifully put, brother. I feel like we should conclude this podcast right here. This has been a wonderful talk with you, man. So great to hear the story and then go into this discussion after it. It was beautiful. Thank you for speaking and sharing your wisdom, man. Much love and a big hug.
Anytime, man. It's been great. It's been wonderful. And I think we should do it again. There's a lot of stuff that we could probably keep on talking about.
Oh yes, I thought to myself, like, this could go on for hours if we wanted it to, but let's rather do more, and then we can have this in a bite-sized format.
Exactly. So
Beautiful.
Much love and appreciation to you, brother. I love you dearly. And look forward to seeing you in the physical realm soon.
Oh yes, I love you too, man.
Yeah,
thank you for this.
Sending blessings out in all directions. And have a great day.
Yes, thank you all for listening. Blessings.
Ciao.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the conversation between me and Ivan. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so by leaving a kind comment or a like. You could also give us a good review. And if you want to find either me or Ivan on any of the social platforms, be that Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, or whatever, all you have to do is search for Ivan Mendez or Stefán Elí and we will come up. So, thank you again for listening. Big hug and blessings.